Welcome back, everybody. I'm doing What If again. I do ask for the moment, or for the time being, that you do stop sending questions, because I am getting pretty backed up with them. I'm trying to answer them as quickly as I can, but I really don't have the time to, because I've just had a lot of things to do, like work and other things. So stop asking questions for a bit, please. I don't mind questions, but I've been getting too many of them, so I wanted to talk about other things, but I do feel I have to answer these questions because they are all credible questions to answer, and I do like to answer them. But I did want to talk about some other things, like I wanted to do some movie reviews, but it wasn't to be. So I knew What If. And this is What If ECW was never created. Now, I believe I've answered questions similar to this, or ECW related. I do get a lot of questions about ECW, but I'm going to assume this question isn't What If ECW was never created. I'm going to assume What If Paul Heyman never came into Eastern Championship Wrestling and turned it into Extreme Championship Wrestling, because ECW actually, technically, a lot of people think it started in 1992 or 1993. It actually started in 1991. With the Tri-State Wrestling Alliance. Todd Gordon was Todd Gordon was the part, or owned half of it, and then he bought the other half off some other guy. I can't remember his name right now. But Tri-State Wrestling Alliance had done a bit of hardcore wrestling. Mick Foley said that, as Cactus Jackie did some with guys like Tracy Smothers, and I think it was Tracy Smothers. It might be someone else. I may be incorrect. Don't quote me on that. But they'd done hardcore wrestling. But what happened when Todd Gordon bought half of it? It became an NWA territory, or a promotion, and Jim Crockett was somewhat involved with it as well, which is something a lot of people don't know. And then we saw, but what it was they were trying to compete with the big promotions. They weren't ECW as we knew it. ECW as we knew it was an independent promotion, which was just trying to create something new and special. Whereas the ECW before Paul Heyman came along was trying to be a large promotion, because you did have big names who had been on national TV, like Eddie Gilbert, Jimmy Snuka, Don Morocco, and things like that. They were a bunch. Not so much Eddie Gilbert. He was a big name, at least. He'd been in lots of promotions and won lots of titles, and he'd never been a world champion, I don't think so. But he was still a big name for an independent promotion. But if Paul Heyman had never come in, it probably would have gone out of business, in a couple of years, because it wasn't doing too well. But if ECW had never been taken over by Paul Heyman, it would influence the industry quite a bit. We would have still seen the Attitude Era, I think, but it wouldn't have been as Crash TV style, because they wouldn't have had that influence. They would have still had some more some of the more risky storylines and things like that, but it would have been more I'm sorry, I keep fucking coughing, don't know why. But it would have been more it's hard to describe. You wouldn't have seen the type of Crash TV style, as I said. You wouldn't have seen as much hardcore wrestling, and WCW definitely wouldn't have gone in that direction either. ECW really set the bar for what should be happening. And if you still would have seen the Attitude Era. It might not have been as successful, and it would have hurt the industry somewhat. But they still would have had to have gone in that direction to survive. As Shawn Michaels said in his book, and it's been said by a lot of other people, it was just the natural next step in the 90s, because the 90s had things had changed from the 80s, and fans wanted to see different things, so they had to change that to keep the audience interested, and and then we'd probably be back here would have come full circle, and we'd be in this situation right now. You wouldn't have seen ROH start up, because the way Gabe Sapolsky pretty much started ROH, and the way he got into wrestling was through ECW. He just applied for jobs with them and tried to get in and work for them, and he just learnt from Paul Heyman. But if ECW was never there, he never would have gotten into the business, and hence ROH never would have been created, because it really was created as a fill-in for ECW. If that wouldn't have been created, the WWE product or whatever WWF or WWE would have changed over time, but if you look at the 80s or early 90s compared to the Attitude Era, it was really different. It wouldn't have deviated. Things would have changed in the 90s to keep the fans interested, but it wouldn't have deviated off that original, 80s and early 90s path. I'm sorry, I keep fucking coughing. And same thing with today. You'd still see a somewhat, it would still be like the 80s or early 90s, in that respect, because you wouldn't have, it would still be, the product would still be changing like it is today, but it just wouldn't have deviated off that original path, because one of the bit, and you may not have even seen TNA spring up, and it really would have, without ECW, the wrestling industry really would have been monopolized by anybody who has money, and it would have proven that, well, ECW was really a promotion that proved you didn't need a lot of money or the best wrestlers or the biggest names to be a success. You could be a success in your market, and you could just expand that market. A lot of people say that ECW never would have been a success because the audience wasn't there. But it's not about the audience being there or not being there. It's about creating an audience, because ECW's audience, or the fan base for ECW after the DVDs came out, the Rise and Fall DVDs came out, grew because people saw the thing and they liked it, and it created interest in the product. And that's what would have happened. It would have, people, if that's what did happen, and that's what would have happened if ECW would stay around longer. Audiences aren't just, already there. They're not something that already exists. They're something that you have to create. It's as I was saying, ECW really proved that it's not about these certain things, and not about money and big names and stuff. And hence you wouldn't see as many independent promotions around today. You would still see hardcore wrestling. I still think you would have seen CCW, because they weren't really just trying to imitate ECW like XPW was. It was, I believe, from my understanding, it was Lobo who had seen things from Japan, ultra-violent wrestling, which is what CCW was doing, is doing. They would have done that. Or they were imitating the ultra-violent style, not just the hardcore wrestling. Hardcore wrestling is hitting someone in the head with a chair and a bin and putting them through a table, where ultra-violence is, wrapping a table in barbed wire, throwing thumbtacks on it and some light tubes and lighting it on fire and throwing someone through it, so they're completely mangled and nearly dead and have to retire at the age of 32. There's a difference between ultra-violent and hardcore. Ultra-violent is, just order a CCW DVD and you'll see what I'm talking about. But having said that, it really would have, without ECW, the wrestling industry would have really been monopolized. You would only see WWE around today, maybe TNA, but it would be more about, it would be hard for anybody to put their money behind products without financial backing, and like TV stations giving anybody a chance, or putting them on pay-per-view without a big financial backer or a large audience and things like that. And it really would have stunted the growth that we're seeing today in wrestling, where we have lots and lots of independent promotions. And it would really be a tragedy, because independent promotions are more influential than what a lot of people think, because they are more, because they're not operating on a big scale like WWE or TNA. They can experiment, they can try new things, and they can see what works. And, there are things that work, and there are things that don't. And independent promotions really are that trial ground to see what works. Just like ECW was. If there are without ECW, you wouldn't see so many independent promotions around today. Without so many independent promotions around today, the wrestling industry really would be limited, monopolized, and somewhat boring, because to get an alternative product, you would have to go look at Japan, or look at Mexico, just to find these alternative products to WWE and TNA, which are really the same thing these days anyway. So I'm sorry this video has been so cluttered up and a bit messy in its presentation and stuff. But I'm really tired and I have other things to do. But I did enjoy talking about it. I hope you're back. The next one I'll probably be doing is, what if the NWA had a TV deal and was as big as it was in the 80s? I hope to see you later.